Hi, welcome to valuationpodcast.com, a podcast and video series about all things related to business and valuation. My name is Melissa Gragg, and I provide divorce mediation and valuation services in St. Louis, Missouri. Today, we have the privilege of discussing the NACVA 30 years and beyond with Brien Jones. Brien is a seasoned association executive, and NACVA is located in Salt Lake City. He's the Chief Operations Officer and Executive Vice President of the National Association of Certified Valuators and Analysts. He's also part of the Global Association of Certified Valuators and Analysts and Consultants Training Institute. Let's talk a little bit about the Global CVA, because I think that this is kind of an interesting there are people around the country, around the world that really are looking at, valuations in a lot of situations. And maybe it's just because I'm a little passionate about it. But valuations are really what business owners always want. They want to try to figure out what they're worth so they can make whatever decision. And it's sort of this elusive thing, right? And so in all places where there is business, there is going to be this need to quantify what something is worth in order to transact it or to plan for it. And the NACVA has actually, this has been years. This isn't a new thing. This has been years that you have been expanding globally, but just give us an idea of like how far reaching that has actually come.
It's cool and exciting. But you're right, we have had international chapters for over 15 years now. We established the Global Association of Certified Valuators and Analysts, where in countries where there's a demand for business valuation, we partnered with training associations or firms who are training to the body of knowledge for the CVA in those countries where the candidates still qualify, like in the US, still apply, like in the US, have to take the test and the case study, like in the US, and be a member and renew their credentials. So the CVA credentialing program is consistently taught around the world to those standards. But there are countries where business valuation is regulated by the government. It's not in the US. Public company valuation is, but private company valuation is not. But there are countries where the economies are strong, where valuation is regulated by the government. And now there are standards, beyond just the US. And so where NACVA has taken a lead in our profession, and that is to take the global body of knowledge outside the US. The general construct of valuation is consistent, but it's the application, like in the US, it might be a different application for exit planning, a different application for litigation, a different application for tax. It's like that in other countries, right? It's a different application to their economy, their laws, and their regulations. And so we're very fortunate to have a growing international presence with chapters in Europe, Africa, the Mediterranean, the Southeast Asia, Canada, and growing those, India, and supporting those analysts like we do in the US with outstanding training, credentialing, resources, because our marketplace is global. Valuation is becoming more global. Now standards apply globally. And so it's been a joy actually to that's another, I wouldn't say benefit to the COVID crisis, but it provided us an opportunity to evolve and really think about how we blend our global membership. And it's been the virtual platform that's allowed us to do that. And it's just the need and the demand is there, and we're just continuing to pioneer with those countries. And it's exciting to see them where NACVA was in the 90s, because they're getting started. They're reaching out to their members, they're growing that resource, and they care about their members' success. And so we have a 30-year history of being able to help turnkey some of the things that we know have been successful for them and those members and bringing them in to engage with our domestic audience. It's been an exciting development, and I mean, we're not going back. I mean, we live in a global economy, as experienced by the pandemic, probably more specifically, most recently. It's impacted all of us, and that need is there.
hmm But it does take in those other countries, it does take some champions. I mean, you got to have some champions that are kind of wanting to get along. I know from the U.S. standpoint, a lot of the educators at NACVA looked forward to traveling, not just to somewhere in the U.S., but internationally. So that
Yeah.
was exciting, and we'll get back to it. I know.
Yeah. Well, it's cool
Um,
that our European chapter, particularly that our largest, approaching 700 CVAs in Europe, mainly in
wow.
Germany, that their annual conference has become so successful that it was rivaling ours by size. Every year, their conference was approaching 400 attendees, which is great. It's the largest business valuation conference in Europe, the largest business valuation organization in Europe, and it's similarly happening in India.
hmm
Before they launched CVA training, they held a business valuation conference, and the first offering had over 100 people. So it was the first business valuation conference in India, and it was, big. And
Yeah.
so that's what's really big on the scale of introducing valuation to a country where valuation is regulated, this new concept of a credential, and helping
hmm
the India chapter become approved as a registered valuation organization by the government of India. NACVA's credential had so much credibility being accredited by accrediting bodies. The CVA is accredited by the National Commission for Certifying Agencies, and it's accredited by the American National Standards Institute. Our members renew their credentials every 3 years. Why wouldn't we as an association hold ourselves to the same level of standards for an association, right? We've got to stay current on the trends and the news and the topics and the methods of teaching, and making sure the body of knowledge is being taught appropriately. And if candidates are being tested, what are the red flags that we need to increase areas of training or improve our test, so that there's this level of quality and integrity around credentials. So that helped us actually earn the approval of the Indian government for them to comply with their regulations to teach and train valuation, because the CVA itself was accredited. And
hmm
so it's an opportunity for those of you who are looking to get into this profession, to you might have clients that have issues cross border. You may
Yeah.
have clients whose spouse is not a US citizen.
hmm
There's all kinds of potential for growth and expansion into an international market, industry wide even. So
Right.
another
Well,
growth.
and even, I mean, even this podcast, we look at the metrics and we look at YouTube and all of that, and we can see international views all over. People are interested in this, even just bringing it and having a more formalized way of looking at value for business.